Jeremy looks like he's getting another one.
It's amazing how it turns silent all of a sudden.
When I say we're going live, yeah.
Green.
See that green light, everybody.
Everything's quiet now.
Let's call the meeting to order. Thank you for being here. Jeremy and I'm gonna let him kind of take over. I think the main conversation is broadband, and as he sent you on an email over the weekend, and some additional reading information. And he has had several meetings with a couple of folks in Rockport, and I went to one last week, and so that's a topic that we want to spend some time on today, and then maybe Sycamore Farm. So let's start with
Right,
that.
so, I mean, I think everyone knows that we've been talking broadband and fiber and all that stuff for a while, on how best to figure out what we really need in town, and what people feel like they need or should have, or what they have. Mark, you can just grab those three, those are for you.
Thank you.
So to that end, I met with Deb Hall, Select Board from Rockport, and Bob Falciani, and John, is it Beeman?
Beeman.
Beeman, from Rockport, he's very active over there, and Fletcher Kittredge from GWI. I think you probably have all that stuff. I did include Otelco's, a little broadband 101 primer, which I thought, I don't know if you've seen it. It's a
It
great.
was 18 pages, and I went, oh, maybe Jeremy's going to give it to us.
Yeah.
Did you?
And I think it's a good summary. And Otelco does a fair amount of work in Maine and a lot in New England, and we haven't heard much from them.
Meg doesn't have one yet.
Tell me who that is, because they even reference, Senator King in here, so it's personalized.
Hold on, Beck.
Oh, okay.
They're a company,
Otelco.
they're a broadband fiber company that brings internet.
National or regional or?
They're national. I mean, I think southeast and northeast primarily, I believe.
Weren't they a small company that grew a bit and then renamed itself?
I believe so.
I can't remember the former
Yeah,
name now.
I'm sure we could Google it right now, but every conference I've been to on like planning conferences, they've always been there. Otelco has been there. I think they're trying to get a little more out there in New England. So when we met with Fletcher Kittredge, and we just tried to brainstorm on how do we get something going? What is needed to, Islesboro, and I also included Islesboro's PowerPoint presentation that they did to get their voters on board, because it was a huge thing in Islesboro. I mean, what they did, and they own it. GWI leases, operates it, I believe.
Contract, I believe, with them.
Yeah. And it's to everyone on Islesboro, which is pretty amazing.
Was that mainly because Islesboro didn't have very good,
Right, I think they just had the standard Time Warner or whatever they had, right?
And they had people with resources who would vote for a bond issue and contribute too, I think.
So we decided to just sit down and have lunch with Fletcher one day, and I know we've talked with Fletcher before. He's been here and he's talked. And I think we just wanted to just kind of really get a understanding from his perspective, being a provider, on what makes a company come into town, and when do they invest, how do they invest, why do they invest in certain places and not in others. It was a good conversation. I don't think it's anything you all haven't heard from him before. But what's interesting to me, he did think a survey was very important. And in a community survey to understand, so that they could understand, a provider could understand what people's needs are in this town and what the take rate would be. So what he was suggesting is if we did a survey and we got a 30% take rate, right, that's 30% of the people that would take their service. They would come in, any provider would come into town with that kind of take rate. And that's just, they wouldn't have to do that legwork if we were able to do a community-wide survey and then put it out there and said, okay, this is the survey we've got. We got a 40% take rate. He says industry would be here in a heartbeat and invest money into Camden to bring fiber. So that's just started the initial conversation. And then Deb and I and Robin, I looped Robin in, and Lehman in, and we met just last week. The idea behind doing it with Rockport is really just to have some cohesion around what the survey is, what the kind of an educational campaign. I think everyone, and even Fletcher, believes that education is key to this. And we need to be asking questions that everyone understands in the survey. What is fiber? What is millibytes? What is all of that? And a lot of people don't know. I still don't know it all. I don't know what speed I have at my house. So the idea was to do a kind of a joint community survey so that the questions would be the same. And we could do educational pieces in the Camden Herald and the Penn Bay, file it, put it online, and just get the information out there to the public. And then following that, we would do a survey. So spend a couple of months doing some kind of focused educational, whether they be articles in the newspaper. I think that's the kind of the format and the idea, and then do a multi-community survey after that. And then we'd be able to provide that to providers, or we'd be able to, we may find that we could do what Islesboro did, or what people are doing down in Baileyville, where they have the broadband utility. But those are options. And it seems to me, I'd like to keep it a little, up here and not focused going down into a broadband utility or into an Islesboro plan. I'd like to just try to get as much information as we can, and then we can make decisions as we move forward. I don't want to throw out there that Camden is looking at owning internet. Don't want to go down that road at all. I'd rather get information, and then the community can make the decisions needed once we all have good information and good data.
At some point, can tell us, and we can tell the citizens what the cost would be, or a range? I think that's really important. People
too,
love
yeah.
the possibility of broadband, but if there's a cost point,
Yeah, it is, and
they'll say no.
you're right.
When you say cost point, do you mean for the monthly service or to them
Yes.
as citizens? And, okay.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
all
and
sorts
I
of,
think
it depends what the model is. And if you look at the Lincolnville thing, what they were showing is, here's what you were spending for your bundled service.
Right.
Here's what you're gonna spend now, where they bonded the project, here's what you spent on, and increased payments to pay off that bond. So it comes out in your tax bill. But still, the overall cost is much lower, even if you look at taxes plus cost of the service is much lower than what they were paying for the service previously in a much reduced service. So there's, depending on what model you take,
Right.
you kind of got, so I think what Jeremy's saying, you start up here, let's start what the need is, what the understanding is, and then start looking at what those models are and what the costs.
I think
would
the
be.
intent, when we met the other day, I think the intent was, and I think it was John who said it, was it cheaper, faster, better?
Yeah,
That's what, I think what everyone wants to bring is,
Those 3 words in every possible. We ended up with cheaper,
What was that again, faster, better?
we could bring fiber and broadband
yeah,
that's
yeah.
cheaper, faster, and better.
in that order almost.
And if that's
it's
the
not
case-
cheaper, then you're-
And leave it the way it is, right?
Well, how many people are going to sign up unless you really need that faster service, or
Right.
unless you really,
Let's not forget, there's a third category, which is people who have, or second category, people who have nothing.
right? Yes.
Yeah, we kind of forget about that, don't we?
I've experienced two over the summer, and I don't know if it's just I think it's users, number of people, number of times of the day they're on and such, where I can't get a connection.
You're exactly right.
And so I
They
think
sell
that's the
you on
important
it
thing.
that you
Do you
got
want
it.
to get online? No,
It's not there.
it's not there.
And those are the kind of questions, John being an I think he's a marketing guy, right? So he understands, I think, a little bit on the types of questions, number of questions that you want to ask. But yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, we need to get to that point so that people that experience that problem, they know that that's a problem. And there's ways to do this so you won't have that problem.
So is the first step to do the survey? I mean, some education first, survey, then we look at the survey? Is this our purview? Is this something we're doing?
Well, we went to the select board, and part of our work plan was to look at ways to bring fiber and broadband to Camden. So I view that as all encompassing. So I would probably, since the plan is to kind of do this jointly with Rockport, and we'll have to figure out how we handle our own surveys and
Right.
send out our own surveys, and they can send out theirs. But when we start looking at the data and the information, I think that should be a joint effort between the two groups. Because again, if a company like a telco or GWI or LCI, if they see good take rates in a certain area of town and they also see them in a certain area of Rockport, which is very near each other, this is a no-brainer for them to just come invest more into this region. So the idea is to do some educational work, articles in the newspaper, and John does work for the Camden Herald.
Well, why I'm asking is that I'm wondering
which
at
comes
what
first?
point
Is that what you're saying?
I'm wondering at what point that residents have a chance to ask questions. I mean, they can take the survey, but if they don't understand a lot, what's the venue for them? Do we have a meeting? Do we call in some experts to explain things to people? Because like you were saying, I don't understand a lot of it either, and,
Nor do I, and I think that's where I think we have to just try to get an educational campaign out there and see who we hit. And then if there's more information we need or people have additional questions, we can
Track it down.
track it
I
down.
think the key point here is, do you do the education or informational piece first or the survey first?
You're
Because
gonna have
you
to
may get-
educate again. I feel really strong. I mean, I think we started the other day having a meeting about, because, so there's a subgroup of people from Rockport and Camden working on it together at this point, and we started out having a conversation about doing a survey. Rockport already did a survey, so
Right.
I think a lot of that information is there, and what they found in doing their survey was they really kind of got out ahead of the public in what they were trying to do, and so their bond got voted down. So to do a survey, there's no more education has happened out there since that last
Right,
survey, so it's
right.
kind of useless to do
I
another survey,
agree,
because I don't,
yeah.
You can't ask somebody's opinion about something if they don't know anything about it.
Right.
It has to be, it has to be education first.
so that's what we're starting with,
Yes.
and my guess is you're gonna do a survey and get a certain amount of information. There's still gonna be a ton of education that goes out, and whether it's public meetings, getting people in, looking at what different options are.
There should be a town meeting, not in this room, but in the Opera House main auditorium, because that's what it will
It'd
take
be
to
nice
really.
if we could get that many
Yeah,
people.
that many people
yeah.
interested.
But I remember you saying, Jeremy, that you did a survey, or you had a survey given to you in Belfast, and you thought it was worthless.
Yeah, I didn't have any, no, it was, it was for me. It was.
Yeah,
I didn't
because you didn't know
understand.
what they were talking about,
And I didn't
right?
know what
Yeah.
context it was. I didn't know anything about why they were asking these questions. I didn't even understand the questions. Right? There wasn't even a handout to go with the survey. I almost feel like at some point, we do the education, we do the survey, but we also send out a educational, double-sider that answers questions so that people can look and they don't rely on that newspaper article that they didn't
What I
read.
would suggest is you get some regular people in this room and
Kinda like the
have them ask
study
every
group.
question they can think of. And then take all the questions that they have and write out very simple explanations for it and put that piece out there. Find out what the questions are first. I don't understand this. Because very often, you start in an advanced area and you think people understand it up to a certain point. So, but you're missing a whole big,
And that's what happened in
One of the
Rockport.
audience,
And I
yes.
think it's like, when I see that survey, it's like, what would my mother do when it came down?
Right.
I've designed websites. If you go to the lowest common denominator, not the guy that's got all the trick
get a
out
cross-section
stuff.
of people and have them ask every question they can think of, so you understand how much they don't know and where you have to start. And then you just put that information out over and over and over again. You can't just put it out once, you can't, it needs to be repeated, because to make a parallel, about the record business, the radio business does surveys about songs. And talked in the mid-90s, had a conversation with somebody, what they do is they will for people that are primary listeners to a radio station, they will do what they call call-out research, where they will call somebody up, and they've already identified that they're a listener to the station, that they are a primary listener, they listen a lot, and they'll say, we're gonna play you the 25 songs we're playing on the air. We want you to judge them between 1 and 5. 1, I don't like it, 5, I like it, so they can know which songs to continue playing. What they discovered is, it took 8 impressions of a song before somebody knew the song. And 8 impressions were 30 seconds here, a full listen here, another minute here, but it took 8 impressions. It took them, the average radio station had to play a song 300 times to get those 8 impressions before they could get good information. And knowing that, everybody's in a hurry and everybody wants to rush out the information and think you can just put out one article and do that. And it's not enough. To do this right and get what we know we need. We need this service for this town. This is the future. This is, how we can attract people to come live here, to move here. This is the future. This is the same as getting.
It's how we can keep people who are already here.
Already here.
It's how you get, this is the factory of the future. And, but we really have to understand how much it takes to get people to understand. And we see it with the Opera House when we advertise shows. We put them out on Facebook, we put them in everywhere. And then every time I walk down the street and run into somebody, says, oh, I thought you would have liked to have gone to see so-and-so. And they said, oh, he played here? I had no idea. And, that's the first step, is to understand we have to get those 8 impressions for people, and understanding that, what it takes to get that. Then it won't be hard at all to get this done. But that education piece is the most important thing.
Well said. Thank you.
So what kind of
I will say, what-
timeline are you thinking?
Well, and this is, we just started meeting, we just met last week, and I think we were talking 2 to 3 months of an educational piece.
It's getting it online, it's getting it in the papers, getting it in print papers, and
And the idea is
you
that
know,
it would be an ongoing,
Well, I'll go talk to you.
piece in the Camden Herald. So it would be right, it'd be a series in there weekly.
Different topic,
And
Bill's on the last.
I think all the members of Cedac should be wearing a sandwich board walking around town.
We need,
That will get people, why are you wearing a sandwich board?
ask me about fiber.
oh, no, don't ask me. Ask Robin. Ask other people, don't ask me.
Is that wool?
Yeah, I was gonna say, cotton wool.
Wool or?
I think the other thing is that we could even in here film an educational piece that goes on public, it's on our website. People can click on it if they want. It's like,
And it's gotta be really clear, and again, find out what, the depth of what they don't know.
Yep.
And then find the easiest, simplest way to explain it. Very often I've had a battle for, and I think this year we did the best job, a battle for years about making sure that the articles we're voting on in the elections, that people understand what those are.
Yes.
We can't even do that well.
No, it's hard, yeah.
And this is important. I'll tell you a quick story. I'm full of stories today. If I make any sense today, I got home from vacation at 5 a.m. this morning. So, if I make any
You've done that
sense.
the last time I saw
Years ago, when computers were first starting out, a friend of mine said, hey, there's a night class at Burbank Community College, and there's a guy talking about computers and what you need to know, and we should go check it out. So he said, great. We went, and there was a guy, and he was talking about computers, and at this point, it was right when IBM had just came out with MS-DOS, and the first Microsoft product. And before that, there was the computer programs were CP/M. And they're K-Pros, and I can't remember the other, and they're big chunky things like this. And the guy in the class, unfortunately, said, everything you need to do on a computer, you can do on CP/M. You don't need this new fancy MS-DOS that IBM is putting out. You don't need to do it. Go out and get a CP/M computer, and you'll be fine. So I went out and bought a CP/M computer, and a week later, it was obsolete. It's people think that what they have now works fine. But, trying to tell people about Netflix and Amazon Prime and those things 10 years ago, and you're gonna need speeds high enough to do that, they wouldn't even dreamt about that. And, you know, this is the future. And we need to be that far ahead and be able to educate people about what they're going to need and how it's gonna change their life for the better.
Are you joining this educational campaign, Mark? Sounds like you should.
If anybody goes back and looks at any of the select board workshops the last 4 or 5 years, my number one priority in every single workshop has been fiber optic for the whole town. That has been my number one item.
How does Time Warner fit into this? I mean, is their technology not up to date? They have no interest? I mean, we talk about the three other
It's now,
providers.
it's now Spectrum.
Spectrum, yeah.
And, you know, the big companies, well, right now they're working, Spectrum has now put out phone stuff. I don't know what they're doing for a cable, but everybody's into 5G, which is mentioned in this sheet. And 5G is interesting because it's a faster service. The antennas have to be a lot closer than they used to be. And they're gonna cover, you're gonna get it in New York and you're gonna get it in Boston and stuff like that. But they're not, and if you have it here, we're gonna have antennas,
Every 300 feet, I think.
something like that. It's ridiculous. But even that, you know, they say, well, it'll work. It won't be as good as fiber optic and it won't be as adaptable and
You
as,
need fiber from which to,
yeah, they need to deliver it by fiber.
right.
And then they put it over there. They need fiber to deliver it.
And the question is in the big companies, I mean, we're looking at this, and I know Rockport has been looking at this, how do you get it to every house in your community? They're gonna come down Main Street, that's where the take rate makes the money, and then they don't care.
And they're gonna charge
And that's every.
really,
That's what the size.
Right.
really strong fees. I like that. I don't know what happened. I'm looking at the Asbro thing. I don't know what they've been to do. But the more we can own it and manage it, the more affordable it will be for the people in this town. Because if it's a for-profit company owning it and managing it, then they're here for profit. We're here to serve,
Competition goes away.
we're here to serve the people in the town. They're here to take the money out of the town. There's a big difference.
Which there's nothing wrong with that. We want companies to be making money.
Right. I think going down what Mark just said, the Baileyville utility, I think, is a good example and a good reason why they did what they did. And our goal is to bring the executive director, I think, down here. I think that's what she's called up there, down here and chat with both towns. And maybe that may be a good use of the Opera House when we have her down here. So there are models that do that, and I'd like to be able to gather enough data and enough info after the survey and work that we do that may be an option, that we do of regional broadband utility.
I think the
It's an
thing that
option.
it mentions in here that's important is, this is as important as water and power and those kinds of things, utilities. It's a utility thing, which, you know, I wouldn't mind being town-owned or region-owned instead of business-owned. You know, we're going through the big, you know, there's all the conflict about CMP, and it's owned by a Spanish company now, and it's changed the service, and it's more expensive. If we own it, you know, we own it.
To me, the best analogy going beyond the utilities, and I mean, I see it is a utility, but Governor King, when he was here, when Rockport did their initial piece, when they opened up their fiber, it's analogous to the roads. And when you go back to what about Comcast and or Spectrum or whoever is out there, you know, if we had asked the trucking companies to build the roads, which is what we're doing by asking Spectrum or somebody like that to come in and do it, they would have done a road from Bangor to Portland, because they don't care about going out to those other places. So it's the road system that we're looking at, because it's like, you know, it used to be Penobscot Bay was the highway going, you know, going up the coast. That was the highway, then we put in the roads, and that was the end of that. And this is how people commute now. I've got Mid-Coast Leadership Academy starting, and I think I've got 3 people who are telecommuting for their businesses that are coming in. And I haven't seen, you know, I kind of have, oh, this person works for a nonprofit, this is a for-profit. This is a new category of people coming in now. There are people working at home that are working for companies all over the place. And so it is the road system. It's a utility, but I think people have more of a better understanding of.
It's a great way to put it.
I need to get from here to here.
is gonna build Route 1.
Yep.
They're not gonna build anything else.
Correct.
Well, that's a good
That
talking
said-
point right there for
That said,
education.
if we do this whole study, and we do a survey, and we come out with great data, we may find that the take rate going out, all the way out 52, or all the way out, Washington Street and out to the Snow Bowl, the take rate's gonna be 40% or 50%. LCI or whoever else, or GWI, if they see that, they're gonna be here, and that, I've heard that from industry folks. Whether or not it's gonna be, on the price that everyone wants to pay, that's another question, but if the take rate's there, which very well may be there, GWI, they may come in and say, yeah, we're gonna invest in the town because we got a take rate of 50%.
And they
I'm
each put in
curious
their own
about
fiber.
how you identify a take rate. So we send out a survey, we get results back.
And that's something I tried to get from, in talking with Deb, and I was gonna reach out to Fletcher, so that we know exactly what we need
Yeah.
in a survey to demonstrate take rate for them.
Well, I guess that's what I'm questioning. You send out a survey, not everybody's gonna answer, so you can get a percent of people who answer, and then you're gonna take a percent of that percent. And even that doesn't mean they're gonna take it, that says they're interested in. So how much credibility, what do you have to do for somebody like that to say, boy, that's a great
I hear
number.
you, and that's the same concern I had, same thought I had, but and again, I'm in talking with the folks from GWI, he said if we get a good survey and we get a take rate on that of 30-40%.
And LCI right now is doing just that. They have on their website, you go on, you say, okay, I just moved back to our house on Mechanic Street. Is there fiber going up Mechanic Street? No. So, we don't have that service there, so they kick you over to another page to say, I'm looking for fiber, here's my address. And they're collecting that, and when they get enough people within a mile or a certain period, then they're gonna look at putting
The
it
other thing you
in.
have to be careful about asking the take rate. It's like, oh yeah, I like it. And then, but you also have to put in what they're charging for it, LCI it's not inexpensive.
No,
And
you're right.
That
Well,
was
can
sort
they
of,
give us any idea of a range of if there's 30%, then this is what it would cost? I mean, because if people are not going to say whether they're going to take it or not
I think they
until they
have,
know how much it costs.
I think they have their charge right now, which is pretty much universal.
Oh, okay.
Wherever they go. If you have it, this is what it's gonna cost.
It's set. It's
Oh,
not
it's-
like if we go down Mechanic Street, here will be your price.
If we get-
Here's our price.
Yeah, if we get
Across the
100
board.
people, it's
Yeah.
gonna be cheaper. If we get 12 people, that doesn't change
Well,
their
then
rate.
why can't that be in the survey?
Should be.
Yeah, because
But
that's
that-
the only way you're going to get people to be
The
honest.
The problem with that question is you also may have to make, I looked through this really quickly, you have to say, if the town does it, it'll be taxes. And according to this, just going through really quickly, Islesboro did it, it's way cheaper even with taxes, it's way cheaper to do it than have a corporate company do it. The figures in this packet, is the camera? I don't know who's looking. About how Islesboro did it. Really quickly, you should look at this.
The numbers are in there.
The other question that comes out of it too is, so our questions that we're looking at is the cheaper, faster, better. Would you switch if you had cheaper, faster, better?
Yeah.
But the other thing we need to understand is what are the services? For instance, what's happened in Rockport, GWI has come in, but people aren't switching even though it's cheaper, faster, better, because they don't have television service. So somebody who has a bundled package doesn't want that. LCI has a bundled package with television with it. So we've got to understand what they're saying they'll switch for.
Right.
Is part, it's
Right.
really, it's not
Okay,
easy.
yeah.
So we're trying to do the educating, we're trying to come up with an understandable survey that we can get valuable information back. But this isn't gonna be a one-shot.
Here's,
I think it's gonna be multiple surveys.
Here are the numbers
multiple.
really quickly from the Islesboro figures. The town manages it, a $360 yearly subscriber fee for all your internet with a $25 a month optional phone. And with high fiber, you can get other TV services. You don't have to subscribe. You can cut cable and you can do other stuff. It says here, people with internet are now paying $85 to $105 a month, or $1,000 to $1,260 a year, as opposed to $360 a year, plus a $25 a month optional phone. much cheaper to do it that way, even with tax.
tax, if you're, yeah, if the town makes an investment like Alsboro did in the price, I mean, the taxes are increased, it's still, at least
Cheaper
it
that
is.
way, yeah.
Cheaper.
And so that's,
Because a lot of people can't afford the, the big prices that these companies pay, and they also bundle everything so that you
Right.
can't just get this or that.
Right. And there's a thought that you need to bundle it still. This idea that you still need your phone, you still need your TV. I have all of the local networks and all of the sports channels I think anyone would want, and that's over the internet. Now, I'm not paying for any TV service at all, other than Hulu. And I do it all through Hulu over the internet. And I think that's, people don't understand that still.
so who's your internet with? Is it Spectrum?
It's actually with Consolidated Communications. Mhm. But you get, what I get is what you were talking about earlier, certain times a day, it's like, whoa, slows right down. I mean, for the most part, my TV works fine. And it's on other devices that I end up having some issues with, but it may be not only the number of devices in my house that are being used by my kids,
That's what it is.
but also every other neighbor that's home, not working today, it's the weekend, it's Saturday, everyone's home,
Yeah.
Fiber doesn't have that
and
problem.
fiber doesn't have that problem.
And what they're doing too, they're, in Rockport, the promise was you have a gigabyte, and, which you can upload, download, you can do whatever you want with that, pretty much. GWI, my understanding from what Deb said the other day, is they've also come out with some packages that are a little bit
I
less.
think they're
than-
going to, I'm not sure they're there yet.
Okay, or even coming out with
Yeah.
something that allows you, because most people don't need that.
Need that.
But you need to have it affordable and available, because it's, whoever said it, that is the factory of the future. That's the upload speed, which is what you don't have on any of these services, is that's the producers, that's the people who's making money and bringing, producing something.
So I think this is a good first start. I mean, does this sound reasonable to everyone to be working with Rockport on this? I think the more people we can bring in the loop, the better. And it sounds like Deb wants to meet every week almost, it sounds like initially.
Have a meeting scheduled.
Next week, right?
Yeah, I thought it was the week after that, actually,
Oh,
It is.
which is fine. I mean, it's not until, I think,
Like
11th or 12th or 10th, but that's fine.
I have it in about 5 different days.
Yeah.
In that meeting.
But does, I know we need to work on board membership too, with the select board and getting a couple more members, I think, on this group, but, is everyone comfortable? Robin, are you comfortable working with this group and you being kind of the focus along with me and maybe Lehman? Are you still?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
If
Does that sound
anybody
good to
wants
everyone?
It's great to me, yeah.
Anybody wants to step up? we can.
I won't speak for
break
him,
your
but I
heart.
think Steve- I won't speak up for him, but I think Steve Matteo was interested as well.
Okay, I'll reach out to Steve. I'll reach out to him separately and just say, hey, yeah,
And he was at some of the earlier meetings.
perfect.
That's right, he was,
Did you have response, Jeremy, from any other member about not being here today? Or no?
No, and I'm sorry I didn't get it out until Saturday morning. I'm laying there in bed, putting my little one to sleep on Friday night, and I'm like, oh,
Oh, I forgot.
that was what I forgot to do today.
Not long before I got your email, it's like, oh, he didn't send that reminder, a meeting reminder.
I got up in the morning, and he's like, Dad, we gotta go do this, we gotta do that. I said, nope, I gotta go online really quick, buddy. Forgot to do something. So we'll move forward on that, and I think hopefully by the next meeting, we'll have a good, boy, we better, I mean, if we're talking 2 to 3 months, and the next meeting's a month from now, so I think the educational piece will probably start before then. But we'll share that, and I'll just funnel it to everyone.
Good,
and
because
if
you need to
everyone's got
educate
comments-
us as well as,
I need educating.
You'll be our test case.
oh, great. We might be
I
disappointed.
think it's, is it Deb?
Deb Hall,
Had already kind of fleshed out some
she did.
articles, 6 or 8 articles or subjects that would, first we talk about this, then we add to it and talk about it. And so we're starting to think about,
Process and,
the process of informing people and what comes first and how do you build on that.
Who are the people in Rockport that are they just a committee that's gotten together for that one
They've been
purpose?
working on it for a long time.
But I mean, they're not like a group like Cedac
No,
or,
They don't have
no,
an organized group like
No.
this.
So Deb is a select board member
Okay.
there, and John has been involved, actively involved in many committees in Rockport before, and
Do you guys know him, John?
Yes.
Okay, he's also active in the library campaign, and he's with the Courier.
He does all the
Publication.
marketing stuff for Village Soup,
Yeah, he's,
all of the Village Soup.
What's his last
papers.
name?
Beeman.
Beeman.
Did he used to work for Down East?
East.
Okay,
Yes,
then I
he
do
worked
know who he
down
is, yeah.
so he and Deb Hall from Rockport are taking, doing what we'll be doing
I
here.
think this piece was helpful, but it doesn't really get beyond why it's important. It didn't get into how you put it together.
No, it didn't, but I think it was good,
It's just kind of a good basis for here's why.
And I think one of the things, and I'll make a couple of phone calls after next week, after Labor Day, you know, like Sanford, a couple of towns that have done
Yeah.
it, you know, what they did. I know with Islesboro, the tipping point was telehealth.
Yeah,
That made it understandable for people that telehealth becomes more and more important, and they get it, they're sitting out on an island, you know? So it's looking at I think some of these different towns, what are the things that made it
matter,
important?
yeah.
well, that sounds good. There is the broadband, Maine Broadband Summit, which is happening in October. I'm gonna be going to that. I can send the link to everyone if you'd like. I don't remember the dates, but it's 2 days in Island Institute helps put that on. It's up at Thomas College in Waterville. So I'll be going to that this year.
If you'd send that, I'd consider going.
Okay.
Link, yeah.
Yep.
I think I probably already have it.
You know, one thought, when we talked to Fletcher, we were talking about, you know, the feds and the state has come out, you know, saying they've got money for broadband in rural America. Fletcher did confirm that Camden and Rockport aren't rural America when it comes to that funding, matching. That said, you know, places like parts of Lincolnville, Appleton may be part of that, Union. So when we get further down the road, regional broadband utility, if that's where this ever goes, we may be able to tie into some of that rural funding that's going out there for those communities. So we can maybe get from here to there, and then they can pick up that funding and take it a little bit further. So that's an idea. All right. Sound good on that?
Yeah,
But yeah, if you have questions, I mean, I do, I have questions on what all this is too, so throw them out there, because if you have them, other people have them.
and also if people who have questions, residents have questions, and they know we're all on the committee, they
be
may
asking
tend to
us.
ask us, and I go, oh, I wish I knew more about it. But actually, if I don't know answers, then I could refer them to the experts who
We're
do.
getting you that sandwich board asking.
Oh, yeah,
We need all those questions though, because we need to
Yes.
know what people don't know.
yes, exactly, yep.
Exactly right. All right, sounds good. Appreciate that. Yeah, Sagamore. I wanted to just touch base on Sagamore a little bit. And I had, I don't know what happened to me. I asked to come into a meeting at 3 o'clock this afternoon, 3 o'clock, so, my planning for this meeting didn't go as well as I anticipated. But Sagamore Farm, I think everyone is, we've talked about Sagamore and what are we gonna do with Sagamore? What are the options up there? And we did just get the final draft, or final, report on the traffic study that was done. No off-site improvements are needed at all. If we did 20 house lots up in there, there would be no traffic improvements needed off-site. If we did a 20,000 square foot office building in there, and then if we did mixed use as well, there would be no off-site improvements needed, which is good. So a developer or the town wouldn't necessarily have to be putting in a turn lane on Route 1, which can be very costly. That said, I think now we need to move a little bit beyond that and figure out what we're gonna do. And I just, from the comp plan, this is just quick, there's just some things about Sagamore Farm. The town should thoroughly explore possibility of using the town-owned gravel pit on Sagamore Farm for a business park. That's kind of phrased odd. Are we using the gravel pit for the business park, or are we gonna use the Sagamore Farm property for the business park? So that was just in the comp plan. I think it, everyone voted on that, and select board voted on it, and it's in there. So it's important to understand that it has been contemplated, prior to us doing something with the Sagamore Farm. And then I just threw in the bottom, Pete, the couple of paragraphs on the bottom really had to do with affordable housing. And that's an option there as well, in my view. So my thinking on this was that I was going to develop an RFQ, which is different than an RFP, but just put an RFQ out, kind of with this, state the purpose, the background of the site development objectives, what your submission requirements, and the selection process.
What's the difference between the P and the Q and the initials?
This says P, not Q.
Oh, it does, sorry. I meant to say Q, sorry. An RFQ is much more, just throws it out there to the developer or someone to just propose an idea.
What is the Q, what are the actual words?
Request for qualifications.
Qualification, okay.
Yes,
thank
sorry.
you.
So developer could come back saying, hey, we're a development firm, and we've done 30 residential subdivisions
Got it.
in Maine, and, of X size, and I'd like to try to pull one off here. And they give us a submittal. But that's what I'd like to do for this property. I think everyone understands that there's a lot of value in that property and a lot of benefits to this town. Not only is it, adjacent to the park, it has, mountain bike trails that are pretty neat, recreational trails up through there. I don't see these things not working together. I see these all working together. So I can see trails and a housing development, trails and a commercial development all wrapped into
We also
one.
discussed solar up
And
there.
solar. What's that?
We also discussed solar, I think, at one point as
Yes.
being a potential.
Yep. And that's still a potential, is expanded solar up there. That's not gone. So
Even if it's on the roof of a commercial building. I mean,
honestly, when I look at it now, I'm glad we took some time to look at it, to take a step back on some of the solar and this site. But now looking at that site, it does appear to me that we could probably get in similar sized solar farm that we have there now on that site and facilitate everything else.
Some of the towns, I think it was in Florida, I just read some towns saying if you put in, or was it California? I can't remember, California, Florida. But if you put in a new building, you will have solar on the roof.
That's going statewide in California.
California does that.
Is that just commercial, or,
No.
not residential?
It's
I
residential.
don't, I didn't even know what state it was, so.
Add to your bill, or your construction cost.
Well,
I mean,
it saves you too.
Yeah, I guess so.
Keep going back to, we're building a new middle school. It's structurally sound on that roof.
Yeah,
They-
I will say they're looking at it.
Right, and they
Now.
didn't have the money for that at the time, but they were,
They're still,
because that's
they're
one thing, we've got this building and it apparently can't structurally support.
Well,
Again,
they're
what did you say?
relooking at when do we get the report from?
she's finalizing it this week, probably September 17th, or I think that's when I'm going to have them to the select board meeting, or
They've
September
relooked at
20th.
all of the buildings in town as well. So
Morrison was up on the roof, I wondered.
getting,
The reality is we don't have enough roof space to get anywhere near the needs that if we're trying to get our consumption down to, we don't have enough space. We're going to need more land somewhere if we want to do that. But the public safety buildings have pretty good, two pretty good south-facing roofs that could support some.
I think what might be important is that they can vent solar sails for boats.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
Solar thing on the back of our boat.
Jeremy, I understand the housing part and how you could get RFQ responses for that. You'll have to define the part of the farm that applies to.
Yep.
And then the commercial, is that a part of the RFQ? Is that like to be determined later on? Is that,
I was going to throw it out there too.
throw it out there too?
What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know, I'm still thinking marine uses up there related to the waterfront, and if any expansion takes place, for water-related uses, I mean, I see a lot of marine companies seem to be doing pretty well.
Yep.
But what's missing here, if anything, what are their future plans? So, I mean, and maybe
Lyman-
that's a low
Lyman use?
intensity use,
Yeah.
I mean, compared to 20,000 square foot building.
Right.
I mean, you're talking a difference in scale, number of employees.
Sure.
And all the rest of that, so, it seems, maybe this is your process, we'll say, oh, yeah, it's wide open, but it's supposed to be. But my comfort level is says, let's put some parameters in there, we don't wanna have somebody saying, okay, I'm gonna buy it, and,
I mean, by the whole piece?
huh,
I mean,
buy it and put up something small there, I mean, we'd probably say no, but.
Right.
no, I was wondering if you were saying that somebody would say, I want to buy the whole thing and do this one little thing. Is that what you were saying?
Well, not really.
No.
No, but I think,
I know what you're saying.
I mean.
I think it's gonna
if
come
you
out
look
to,
at who's building 20,000 square foot office spaces these days?
not many,
The health industry probably is.
right?
But, I mean, unless you're in a tech corridor or something.
Correct.
It's not gonna happen.
Yep.
We don't have the population to,
Don't have the population
to fill a building like that.
No, we don't, and I think, I think the town's been waiting.
Belfast are going up for sale.
They are,
There's
big auctions, yeah.
a lot of good space there, so, I mean, how do we, it's not, to me, a traditional developer kind of space. You gotta, maybe we need to
Niche.
reach out to who has potential, I mean, with our, what they used to call them, economic sectors or economic, what was it, but anyway, play to our strengths. And how do you reach out to the people or the companies that appear to be in our wheelhouse and say, here's an opportunity.
That point taken, and I will. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on the office space. I do. I mean, the reality is, we're not gonna get I don't think any of these towns on the mid-coast are gonna get a company to come in to do a big office building. It's just not happening anymore.
Well, it's totally opposite what we just talked about with the fiber. Fiber is people working out of their homes,
Yeah.
entrepreneurs
Yeah. Yeah.
doing that, and people are working remotely now, because it's much less expensive for the companies, works really well. That's the future.
And so maybe what I can do is, I mean, I think a lot of this is gonna be in that site development objective on what does the town really want? And so I'm gonna have to nail it on that, and so I can work on that and then send some drafts of that around to everyone.
Still some zoning strictures there as well.
There are, yeah. I mean, yes, I think much like I did with the RFP for the tannery, the town's would be willing to entertain zone changes and all of that to facilitate something, that works and is compatible with the town. So I don't want to be stuck so much on the zoning piece. But, I mean, obviously I'd include what the zoning is, but I think the right thing comes along. I think the town would get behind something, would be my hope. Especially keeping the trails, keeping the recreational piece a part of that, and the solar farm a part of it. All those things can work together. They don't have to conflict with each other. And I think we may get a little pushback from the mountain bike folks and the folks that use the trails. And I don't know the extent, I've been up there a handful of times, I haven't seen anyone. But we can work, they can be compatible, and they're assets to each other.
There's a bunch of stuff coming in the future around the mountain thing, and
Yeah.
so, I mean, that's still Dodge Mountain even.
Right. Yep, yep. Does that make sense for everyone to do an RFQ out there? And, I'd send this to everyone out there. Maine and Company, everyone would get the RFQ, and it would get out into the ether world, and hopefully we get some bites. I mean, it's a prime spot. I am gonna reach out to the state as well on the sewer. They had to do a fairly large septic system not too long ago, 10 years ago maybe, to serve the campground at the state park.
Okay.
And it's not those systems don't last forever. And they're gonna and be in line for another big expansion, another system at some point, septic. And if they could tie into sewer, I gotta think they would like to.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna reach out to them and just see if they've got any ability, any
That would
thoughts on
impact the value
expansion.
of that piece of property.
It would.
Exponentially.
And they could probably put in more sites over there. You know, just throwing that out
And
there.
solve environmental problems at the same time.
Right. So I will reach out to them on that.
Have we ever, as a board, this goes back to when Paul was on, and we had conversations around here, and maybe it happened with the select board, of making a statement that Camden's goal is sustainable, being a sustainable community, environmentally sustainable, and like put that in writing and draw a line in the sand, so that when we do RFQs or RFPs, we can state at the beginning, Camden has said we want to remain a we don't want you putting pesticides all over, just kind of define that this is what we want as a community. It's our goal, is to be environmentally and.
Some kind of core beliefs of the town's core beliefs on certain things. Mhm. That's a
And that
good,
would be a restriction.
And then,
Right?
right, and so then then they know, and that, it says what kind of a town it is that they're coming into, and I think that's really, we value, what this goes back, values, that goes back to what we talked about with Jane and listening sessions, but
Yeah.
anyway.
yeah.
That would
We can work
help
on that.
shape their responses too, I mean, having that information up front.
Maybe we could call it core character instead of core beliefs or something like that. I mean, I was gonna say, we talk about corporate culture. but I'm not sure you wanna apply that to a whole town.
Well, that's what's hard, and that's
Right.
what goes back to when we
Right.
talked to Jane LaFleur and about having these public sessions, and you do come out with core values at the end of
Core
that, because you have
values.
so
Well, that-
many people
Core values is a good,
participating.
is a good word.
And then it
Yeah,
goes to
better
the
than
select
beliefs.
board to ratify those core values, and,
Yep.
it goes up on the wall up there.
Yeah?
But you need public
Yeah,
input to
yeah.
do that.
That's
I
a
just
good
squirming
idea.
with the phrasing, so
Beliefs.
values is okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like- everybody's-
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
And I can tell you, somebody tried to put something together like that, a small group a couple of years ago, and it instantly went viral and became very contentious, so,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
anyway,
Well, I think that's a good discussion for the select board to have.
keep it simple.
Do you think that's a good discussion for the select board? Come up with something like that?
Do they need it to be presented to them? Or is that something that somebody on the select board would just kind of go, oh, by the way?
I think I could probably, bring it up to the select board at the next meeting in September.
In reference to what we're talking about right now, it would fit
And I
right
would
in,
really
yeah.
encourage it be simple, we not get down into the
I agree.
weeds.
Yeah, you
It's
can't get into
because-
specifics.
Yeah,
One
it would
sentence.
be-
But it's,
30,000
we
feet.
value environmental sustainability, we value our community, a couple of really simple things, not.
We did okay something a year ago, 2 years ago, about that, something about that.
Yeah.
There was something,
around.
uh,
Quality of life
That's
and,
the one, I know,
yeah,
In reference to something specific?
sort of quality of life and stuff like that we're trying to, there was something we,
well, let's find what that is.
yeah,
Yeah.
it should be on the website somewhere.
all right. I will do that. And I will dig a little deeper on the industries that, the marine industries that, are right here in our, like you say, our wheelhouse.
I can't let go of the idea of a nonprofit educational institution too. If I could take the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship,
Yeah,
bump that up
Yeah.
there,
Oh, yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
That brought people in,
yeah.
created.
I've heard things of like culinary schools of some sort.
High schools, yes. Yeah, yeah. Writers, there was money out there for writers' school, and I think that's going to Maine Media, because they're starting to pick up those courses,
Right, they're
which is
doing
okay.
storytelling stuff now.
Yeah, yeah. But,
I want to compete so much, so I think it's good. That kind of builds up the whole when an entity
Yeah.
in Rockport starts thriving. it
right, yeah, but I'm
brings
saying,
us all
just use
up.
that as an example. It's,
What about SIF? Are they looking for a place? They seem to each year have to find some place where they can have their hubs and stuff. I'm not saying that that could be used, but it might be a great place for them. I don't know.
Nope, good ideas.
When you say marine, what are you talking, support industry? I mean, is this manufacturing or repair or?
Well, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to speak for
Yeah,
Lyman
but I
Morris,
mean, what, is that the kind of thing you'd be talking about, is something that would be supportive of?
Well, it could be, or it could be some kind of, like, the landing school down in Kennebunk, which teaches people to build boats. and
Yeah, okay, right.
That kind of thing. I mean, again, an educational institution that draws people in. I mean, I've often heard too that what's missing in boat building these days is training or education in electronics, you know, the whole digital world of navigation and so on. And, well, it's like Maine Maritime Academy's thing.
Yeah.
I mean, something like that would be such a wonderful fit.
Oh, we
in many
attempted
ways.
with the ocean school, because they have the new ocean school up in Searsport.
Searsport.
They very intentionally went into Searsport.
Yeah.
Or there's the Wizard of Oz Museum that is.
Yes, that's right.
There's a bunch of things.
But what else? I mean, those kind of that, what is it, like art, I don't care, fiber school, I don't care, culinary.
Right.
I mean, all that stuff would be such a great fit.
Okay, so look for something on that, in that regard for me over the next month, in the next couple of weeks, and I'll try to get that focused so I can get something out. That's about all I have on Sagamore Farm. Is that,
Before we adjourn, can I mention, I saw on Facebook, so it must be true, that I believe it's this Thursday night, there's an art walk in Camden.
That is true.
Is it Thursday? Oh, why did I
This
think it was
Thursday.
Friday? Okay.
Thursday night, 5 to 7.
Yes.
Exciting, and it was.
Colin Page's gallery would have their latest opening on Thursday
And
night.
it was kind of entitled Camden After 5 or After Dark or something like that, which sounds vaguely familiar, Lehman. Excitingly so. So there's a move afoot. It was pretty nice.
That's great,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Is this a one-time deal?
Well,
See
they
how
are
it goes?
actually, believe it or not, they already had one a month or so ago, and this has added a couple more galleries to it, so, I don't know that the plan is to have them, you know, monthly for the whole season, but I think that, you know, you might see, I don't wanna speak for them, but I think you might see multiple efforts to do that, or multiple dates of
and
those next year.
And I think,
so.
I'm not sure it's from this group, but from others, there's a conversation about trying to get some of the other stores to come in so that stores would stay open on those nights. So they're trying that.
Right.
That
Oh,
can
that's a
be-
great-
so,
So has anybody contacted Connect with Coffee and
is
Downtown
it a
Business Group or anything?
chamber?
Yeah, I mean, we're helping to promote it, yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Right, but I think the downtown businesses need to know about
Yeah,
it,
I
and
saw-
Yeah, especially if they could stay open, that would be great, if you could tie that in.
It came from, do they say Cedac, D-A-A-C,
Yeah,
Dog and a Couch?
so, yeah, they're participating, Page Gallery,
oh,
Right.
yeah.
Cannon Falls.
Small Wonder, yeah.
So, and I may be missing one or two, but,
Is there any way we can get, in? I mean, that's this Thursday.
yeah.
Right, any way we can get the word to
I
the
actually saw it on
businesses?
Instagram, now that I think about it.
The businesses, you know, right off so that they know. I mean, I will say, you know, Belfast does, an art walk 4 times a year, I think is there. I think they do one.
Right.
4 times, and then they do a 5th one for around Christmas. Wildly popular, and downtown is abuzz all night long, and the stores stay open, more retail stores stay
Well,
open.
most, no, I shouldn't say most, but the stores that are open at night in summer, like us, will still be
Will still
open.
be open.
But I don't know, I would think, especially down on Baby Street, they should know about it.
I'm just, yeah.
I'm trying to think, our hours are,
What are most merchants' hours this time of year, at night, in the evening?
well, we're 9 to 9, but we actually, this week, which is notoriously, it starts slowing down a little bit this last week in August. So we're 8 o'clock this week, just Monday through Thursday, and then for the weekend, we're back to 9 o'clock again. And on Main Street, there's maybe 3, 4, maybe 4 stores that stay open at night in the summertime. That's about it. But I'm trying to think, I don't know who to contact in Cabbage anymore.
Well, I don't know as I know either. I mean, is-
In terms
is
of
there-
generating an email or
Yeah,
something?
yeah.
Is it,
Kim
Palermo, I guess.
is the one that,
Kim and
is the
Show.
one that kind of sends out stuff for Connecting.
Right.
Mark O'Donnell is the president now.
Yes, Mark.
Camden.
Oh, that's right, he is.
Camden National is president, but I think Kim's the one that's in
Well,
charge of
I
sending
could
out
just
the promo.
send
Yeah.
her an email tonight and just say, you know, can you send this out to all the businesses and make
Yeah.
sure they know about
We did
Thursday
have it
night?
in our Friday report last Friday too, so.
And is it 5
5
to
to
7?
7.
And it's called
Camden Art Walk.
Camden Art Walk.
Yeah, it may have started with Colin's been doing, Colin Page has been doing a monthly opening since he
Right.
opened the gallery, and it's
There
sort of
was-
become
It
on
is.
There was
Thursday night.
something Camden after
Yeah.
dark, Camden after 5. Let me see if I can.
So it might not be called Camden Art
It
Walk.
would be after dark at this point.
Not yet.
Almost.
Yeah, it's getting darker and darker, isn't it? Yeah, I'd like
Yeah,
to say what it is correctly.
The release that they sent to us that we published, it called it the Camden Art Walk.
Okay, all right, all right, I will send her an email.
That's great. One,
Camden after 5 Art Walk.
Okay, and you found this through,
That's on
but at
down.
Camden after 5, it could be in the dark or it could be in the
Camden
summertime
after
in the
5
daylight,
and
so
number
keep it
5,
that way.
If they're
yep, okay,
Art Walk.
and it says 5 to 7.
Stack Design, Page Gallery, Carver Hill Gallery, Leslie Curtis,
Well,
Small Wonder, and Camden Falls. So 2 public landing, 4 Bayview. So
Okay.
it's very Bayview
Yeah,
centered
well, I
right
mean, as soon
now.
as I show it to Kim, she'll know where to look it up and she can, yeah, okay.
just one, maybe one final, I gave you a brief update on the tannery situation last month. We are now, EPA has in contracts, I don't know what I gave you last time, but EPA was looking at, we hired a consultant to come up and look at that riverbank issues that were not identified in prior site assessments. And our consultant identified some further gaps in some of the sampling that had taken place over time, which isn't great. So we went to EPA. I reached out to EPA and I asked, I told them we're going to identify, fill in these gaps that we have found before we do this cleanup. And I said we were prepared, the town was prepared to spend our own money to assess, these areas. And EPA came back and said, well, I may be able to find you some targeted assessment funds that they would give the town of Camden. And so our consultant, Brian Slacky from SSI, Siler Services, developed a scope of work. We sent it off to EPA and to DEP. DEP was fine with it. They really had no comment. EPA was great. EPA said, this is awesome. Now it's in contracts, which means it's into the system. So they're developing a contract. They're going to put out a contract out there for one of their contractors to come up and do the site assessment and actually do the sampling, all on the federal government's dime. The town isn't going to have to spend a dime on any of it. Well, Brian will be coming up to oversee it, so we don't have any further gaps. We're going to be able to use his time as cost share into the cleanup anyway.
Brian who?
Brian Slacky from Siler Services. It's a consulting firm out of Philadelphia area, small one that works on brownfields and nasty old mill sites.
So when are they gonna do this?
So it's in contracts. I just got an email from Alan at the end of last week. It's in contracts, and we should be up sampling that material early October. So within hopefully just over a
What's
month.
the RFQ for that site? to the town election next June? Town meeting next June?
That would be that's my plan, yes, if not before. I have some honestly, I got some new ideas on that, but I will share them with you all at a later date, I think.
Right. The dark side of me says, oh, we're moving into a recession in about 2008 when we did this. It's
Oh,
like, holding off for 10 years.
Oh,
and-
that's right.
So we're not gonna be there, right?
Hit the next one.
No. I mean, I think I've got some ideas that I think a lot of people will be, collectively, the town will be happy with what I'm proposing there. That the farmer's market will stay, green space will stay, and we'll get some taxable property, and maybe even we'll get some energy out of it, so.
When is the next meeting?
23rd, September 23rd, 4 o'clock.
First day of fall. How can that be?
Wow, wow, wow.
You know what's coming next.
Yeah, but that means I get to stop cutting the grass.
I know that's gonna break your heart, it is
You'll be
mine.
happy about that.
It's already slowing down a little bit.
I would rather shovel snow any day
I
than
agree.
shovel snow.
Well, what the Farmer's Act says, Farmer's Almanac this year says it's gonna be a nasty one. Cold and lots of
I
snow.
feel like the Farmer's Almanac says that every
They've
year.
been saying it every year,
Yeah,
yeah.
really.
All I care is if it's cold and nasty in December and we can get snow made for the snowball, that they can use for the season like they did last year, happy guy.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
do need snow, but can it just snow there? Because we need a really cold, snowless winter to kill the ticks.
Oh, I hope that would be one.
Because they
Yeah.
keep climbing under the snow and getting
That's a
healthy.
good idea. If it is
Just like
just a
dump right in
funnel,
that one
yeah,
little
funnel
spot.
right on the.
Yep.
You can, yeah,
There are
engineer
not a lot
a.
of ticks on boats, are there? In the
No.
ocean?
Well, there are when we go ashore.
That's right, you've got dogs, so.
All right, sounds good. And I'll keep you all in the loop on both of these projects. And again, if you have questions on broadband or fiber and you
I don't
already,
even know the question.
right. I get it. But just
But I'll look through this
ask,
for sure.
ask, so that we can make sure we hit all the questions that
So
we
our
need
job
to.
is if we can educate you, so you get it.
You will have done your job.
Then we know what we're gonna have to do with everybody else.
And I'm right there with you, by the way.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, energy's canceled.
Had a flashback